What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Swagcast. This week we have a former UFC and now retired MMA fighter, a loving family man, a guy that always fought with his pride and left it all in the cage every fight, a Rhode Island legend, Andre the Asian sensation Soukhamthath. What's going on, baby? How you doing?
What's up, bro? How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm so glad you joined me today. Like I said in the intro, you're a Rhode Island legend. You know, growing up, all we had over here was the CES. We would go to fights when we were like 15, 16, and you were the man. So my first question is actually about growing up in Rhode Island. You grew up in Providence, Woonsocket. So how did you first get introduced to MMA? Was your dad a big part in that? He's also a Rhode Island legend. Not for nothing.
I I mean to MMA, I always knew what MMA was because, we had a little black box growing up and I used to see all the pay-per-views and there was a big buzz around like the UFC, the first UFC. So like, I always found it interesting in watching the cage fights. I thought it was pretty crazy. Not everybody liked it. My dad wasn't a big fan of it because of all the grappling and the wrestling and stuff, but he wasn't educated into it. But he was always a martial artist, so I definitely grew up my whole life like with him teaching me kind of how to protect myself. Not necessarily how to fight in the ring, but just how to protect myself. I grew up in some hard areas. Very very heavily drug gang related. Easy to get up in the wrong crowd. Easy to get picked on. So he just wanted to make sure I knew how to defend myself. So he he made sure I knew how to fight, and I can say that I had a couple scraps when I was growing up, a lot of scraps, and I didn't win them all, but I had heart. So that carried on to all the sports I played, the way I lived my life, the way I fought, even in the playground. I always had heart, never gave up. Sometimes I would take a beating, blood all over my face, and go see my mom. My mom would be like, "What happened to you?" I'd be like 8 years old.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got in a lot of scraps growing up. I always knew what the UFC was, but I didn't start training MMA. And I didn't really get into it until after high school. I started training after high school. I was looking for something to do, so
Mm.
I decided to go and train mixed martial arts.
Okay, so that's actually my next question because when you were coming up, and correct me if I'm mistaken, there was only like Santos MMA and Triforce. So how did you go about like training at one of these gyms, or did you go outside of Rhode Island, or was there another gym that I'm just not really focused on or know about really?
Yes, there was another gym. The gym is still around, actually, ran by the same owner. It's called USMMA, but not in Rhode Island. It was in Bellingham,
Oh,
Mass.
okay, yeah.
So it's USMMA. It was down the street from my work, my job. I worked at the Home Depot, and it was a perfect location because I went there after work. During my breaks, I would go and train at the gym. They had showers, so it was perfect. And yeah, I ended up stumbling upon USMMA. They at that time they had a UFC fighter that was one of the owners. His name was George Rivera.
Okay.
He was a big deal in New England for MMA,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of the OGs. If you say his name to anywhere in New England MMA circuit, people know him. And he was one of the trainers there, and the owner, he was an old promoter. His name is Tom Hafers. He's still the owner there. He had a lot of connections also, with the old school MMA guys. So I decided to train with them. That's the first place I walked in, and I liked the vibe, and they treated me like family right away. They gave me an opportunity. I couldn't really pay for my monthly fee. I couldn't pay my dues, so I paid my dues in another way. They allowed me to like kind of be the janitor of the gym. I just stayed after class every day and cleaned up, mopped the floors, cleaned the bathrooms. I cleaned that whole damn building. You know what I mean? And I did that for a couple of years to pay my dues for training. So that's actually where I started. And then after after I went pro, I then decided that I needed I needed like some more training partners. At that time, I didn't have many training partners at a certain level there at USMA. So that's when I decided to go to Triforce
Okay.
after my first pro fight.
Okay. All right. Let's take it back a little bit. You made your AMI debut in 2010 and your pro debut in 2011. What do you think are some of like the major differences in MMA compared to back then and like to now? Like how has the sport grown over like the last 15 years, do you think?
Right now, I mean, I feel like everyone's doing it. You know, compared to when I was doing MMA, people thought I was crazy,
Mhm.
and they were like, "What you doing?" You know, or they wouldn't believe in me. Like, dude, you're gonna get your ass kicked. You're gonna get messed up. You never wrestled or anything like that. But now I feel like it's such an easy source to get to. You know, you can find gyms in Rhode Island now that you can find one thing in one building. You can find everything in one building. You know, your jujitsu, your wrestling, your MMA, your striking, your kickboxing, your boxing. You can find all that in one building nowadays. But when I was coming up as an amateur, even as a pro, I had to travel for my boxing. I had to travel for my jujitsu. I had to travel um, for my strength and conditioning. You know, and there wasn't really a blueprint of what to do to get ready for a fight camp. You know, you just trained hard. You learned your techniques, and you went out and fought. Nowadays, there's a whole science behind it. You know, thanks to the guys. Um, you know, I would say in my era, I think we kind of paved the way for these young fighters to say, hey, this is what you got to do. And I think that fighters nowadays are a lot smarter than fighters were my day. You know, it's more like a business. A lot of kids, they're doing it to you know to be popular. You know, some do it to be popular. Some do it because they love it. You know, some do it because they've done mixed martial arts. You know, some of them start since they were a little kid,
Mhm.
5, 6 years old. They're wrestling, their parents got them doing jiu-jitsu, their parents got them doing karate and boxing already. So some of these kids, they're like 18, 20 now, and they've been doing it since they were 4 or 5 years old. You know, you gotta think I've been doing it for about 18 years. So
Mhm.
these kids are 18 now, and they grew up while the sport was progressing, while the sport was becoming more popular, with Conor McGregor's, so I think that the sport's definitely evolved, um, and I'm really happy to see that. But I do feel like it's not as raw as it used to be
Mhm.
from when I first came up. Like my first amateur fight was in a basement. You know what I mean? With a basement, you brought your own gloves. You barely had any gloves, and nowadays it's just like I feel like the promoters are taking on advantage of a lot of the fighters.
Mhm.
And everything's about money. Everything's about getting views and likes nowadays without the actual fight. Like people, in my opinion, it's like, if you're an amateur, stay in your lane. You know what I mean? The pros are totally different. You know what I'm saying? And then like when you're a pro, it's like, okay, you can say you're a pro, but when you want to get to the UFC, you know, you gotta work your ass off for it. It's not just a gimme. People think that like, oh, I'm gonna start fighting. I'm an amateur now. I'm gonna make it to the UFC. Those are great dreams to have. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But I don't see that work ethic in a lot of these fighters. You know what I'm saying? I think that they're very delusional.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by it's not as raw as it used to be.
Mhm.
Because we
So
used to just fight. We didn't pick our fighters. I didn't pick who I fought coming up. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Nowadays, everybody's handpicking who they want to fight and things like that.
Yeah, it's kind of turning into boxing in that site where like everybody wants to be perfect, everybody's like picking and choosing. But however, you kept mentioning the UFC, and we're kind of in a time where like it's not really just the UFC anymore. You got the PFL. You've always had Bellator, but I feel like the PFL has taken them to even like newer heights. And then you got one championship. Like, do you see any of those like promotions on the same pedestal as UFC, or do you still see UFC as like that's the main goal for many of these guys?
I think at the end of the day, the UFC is the main goal for a lot of these guys. Even I'm not saying it's the best promotion, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of competition and the most popular and the biggest organization, I would say it's the UFC. No matter what anyone else says,
Mm.
it's the UFC. And that could change in the future, but I don't see it changing. The UFC is when you mention MMA, you don't say, "Oh, so I'm a PFL fighter." No, it's like, "Oh, so you do UFC stuff."
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so but I'm not saying that the other organizations aren't as good. I'm just saying that the UFC is the most popular, and in my opinion, it's got the most competition. The UFC does have the best fighters in the world. So if you
Mm-hmm.
want to be the best, you want to be number one, you want to be considered, the top of the food chain, you need to go to the UFC to prove it. And I
Yeah,
think that's why a lot of these guys from other organizations, even though they're at one or PFL, they still want to get to the UFC so they can test themselves.
Mm. Okay, okay. So now part of the reason you're such a Rhode Island staple for fighting is because of like the crazy superstar performances you put on for CES. Can you talk about like what CES means to you and how it felt to fight in New England so many times?
CES always treated me like family.
Mm-hmm.
We did good business together. They knew that I could fill the seats. Obviously, that's good for their promotion, and they always got me fights. They kept me busy, and whenever I wanted to fight, they always offered me fights, if I wasn't ready, I would say no. There'll be no problems. And when I was ready, they always had an opponent for me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a great, not only like business wise, but even like personally, that they mean a lot to me. Mr. Birchfield, Jimmy Birchfield Jr., the whole staff there, Patrick Sullivan, Mike Parente, even Fred. Like they all. I feel like I grew with them with
Mm-hmm.
my career. I grew with them. Steve Mays. They mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate them for always having my back, always providing what I needed. Like, hey, go to this doctor, he'll help you out. Go to this gym, they have a sauna. Just little things like that. It means a lot to me. And our goal was to get to the UFC,
Mm-hmm.
and we did it.
Yeah, so in 2016 you fight Cody Nordby, who us MMA dorks in Rhode Island thought was gonna be like one of the top guys in MMA history. What with some time you flatlined him with a flying knee in the fifth round, which was a borderline viral moment. Did like the big CES moments like this help you prepare for UFC debut, which came two fights after this one?
I mean, absolutely. I went 5 rounds for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
so my training was really intense for that camp. I really had to prepare the right way, and I think I did. I had a lot of good training partners for that camp. But I think every fight is different. A fight is a fight. I'm not looking ahead. At that time I was motivated, and I was I was really motivated to beat Cody Norby's ass. You know what I mean? Because we had bad blood, and I
Yeah.
also wanted the belt. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the first 135 champion for CES. I wanted to make history. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like CES was my promotion. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't make sense if I wasn't the champion. So I felt like I earned that title. Before I fought for the CES, before I fought for the belt, I fought for them for like 11 times. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
doubt anybody else has did that. Besides like Taj Patel or something. But when I actually fought for the belt, like I think I earned that title.
Mm.
And I was really motivated to win that fight, and I knew where I was going. You know what I mean? I just knew that what was in my way, and I had to finish the task, and I did.
Yeah, no, but that flying knee was crazy. It was like it was everywhere. It was everywhere for months, especially if you're from Rhode Island. Like you've seen that flying knee at least 100 times. Like just scrolling through Instagram, it was everywhere. Like,
Yeah, it was the perfect ending because It was in the fifth round. I was pretty much beating his ass the whole fight.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm
you were.
saying?
You had the dominant
Even
edge
though he
the
was
entire time.
wrestling me and I was beating him up from everywhere. I had him all bloody. I had him all beat up. He didn't give up. Mad props to him. But you know, I trained that flying knee for hours with my father. You know what I mean? Like people don't know that. People don't see that. They don't see all
Mm,
the hours I put in just doing that one technique, and then for me to finally throw it and land it like that to win a championship. You know, making history. It's awesome. You know what's crazy? They deleted that from YouTube though. They deleted that whole fight from YouTube,
really?
which I don't understand why. Yeah,
You
crazy.
you gotta get on their ass about that. That fight's like historical.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they did it, but it's deleted from YouTube. It was at about 500,000 views too, and
Yeah.
they deleted
Cody must have got mad. So no,
it.
I'm just kidding. So you make your UFC debut in March of 2017, and you end up going on a 2-fight skid, losing both by decision. How do you stay in good spirits after 2 close losses, and how do you kind of prevent that from hurting the mental?
When I got to the UFC, you know, I was like, it was a lot of, I don't know, man. I didn't feel like I was myself. You know what I'm saying? So I, I didn't fight the way I usually fought,
Mm,
and you know, no excuses, but I don't know what happened, man. You know, I never been at a high level like that. There's a lot of pressure. I never had money before, and I finally am getting some money. You know what I mean? So my head wasn't in the right place all the time, to be honest. But yeah, man, I lost 2 close fights. Everybody knew that I won that fight in Mexico. I could have even won that fight my debut. You know what I mean? But I made that mistake, and whatever. You just gotta keep going, man. That's my attitude. I'm resilient. If you know me, I'm really resilient. You watch my career, I'm resilient,
mm-hmm.
and just gotta move on, bro. Uh, I lost 2 fights. You know, I just knew I had to win the next one, and I did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you were such an active fighter and you fought about every 4 months throughout your UFC run. And even beforehand, what did daily training look like to keep you always ready? Because you all were always in phenomenal shape mostly throughout your entire career.
Thank you. Yeah, man. I just had a routine. You know what I mean? I made sure I trained 2 times a day, 5 out of the 7 days a week, and I made sure I kept up with my strength conditioning. I made sure I still sparred. You know, I don't spar like a lot of the guys nowadays. You know, we sparred hard where I was from, where I trained at, and that kept you in shape. You know what I mean? We didn't just spar; we fought each other twice a week. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And even when I was not in camp, I did that to help my teammates get ready for their fights.
mm-hmm,
You know, it wasn't this pity patter shit. It's we fought. You know, and um, that's why I'm as tough as I am because and I was always in shape because I always sparred hard and I always kept up with my strength conditioning and I always wrestled hard and you know I always put myself in a bad position in the training room.
mm-hmm. Okay, so now what was the timeline when you left Rhode Island and go to Florida? Because you did end up going to American Top Team in Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I left Rhode Island in 2014. So yeah, I was about 22 years old. I had about 8 fights, pro fights by then, and I actually left Rhode Island to go train with the Black Zillions at that
Okay.
time. Yeah. I'm I'm one of the first members of the Black Zillions. I think I joined their team like the first year they got, you know, they made themselves. So I was riding with the Black Zillions for about 6 years. And I was up and down with the Black Zillions because what I was used to was at home with my coaches and we had a certain routine. And then all of a sudden I moved to Florida. I changed everything up. But I have no regret of that because I had the opportunity to train with all the best fighters in the world. You know what I mean? If you look at them now, look where they're at. Like Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman, my boy Sean Soriano. Just I can just say names, Luke, Vincente Luque. I could just keep on going on about the guys I've trained with, right? So I got to establish a relationship with all these guys. I got to learn from these guys. I got to train alongside these guys, and I also got to build connection with these guys, um, with who they know, and that helped me a lot in my career also. For making a stamp and making a name for myself out there. And yeah, I was actually with the Black Zillions when I fought Cody Norby and I won that belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of resources for great wrestlers. You know what I mean? So that helped me tons. I had great coaching and things like that. So I and after the 6 years, when the Black Zillions kind of split up and they made another team, I ended up going to American Top Team, and I spent 4 years there.
Okay.
So 10 years of training in Florida.
Yeah. So when I had mentioned this to you before we even started recording, but when you fought Sugar at UFC 222, Dave and Buster's in Providence Place Mall was packed with MMA fans. It always is for every fight. And not everybody knew who you were before that fight started, but the second they did, they became an Andre fan. And place was cheering for you. When he broke his foot, place was like, jump on him, jump on him. It was insanely packed. You have so much love here in Rhode Island. Everybody loves you in all of the moments you've given us. And so now, do you find that same love in Florida and now in California? Or did you never, because you had mentioned to me, oh, I didn't know that before we had started recording. Do you never really realize the love where you are?
No, I always knew that I had a lot of love in Rhode Island. Those are my people. You guys are my people, and I always want to represent you guys. Sorry, like, and when they say where am I from, I'm from 401. You know what I mean? Because Rhode Island made me who I am. I think if I was born in Florida or California, I wouldn't be as tough about as I was. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Being born in the Northeast, facing all those snow winters, facing all the things that I faced growing up. Like I said, I got into a lot of fights, things like that. We're just raw up north. We're just raw in New England. You know what I mean? And you go to a New England show of amateur fighters and the New England and a California show of amateur fighters. It's like night and day, man. Uh, the guys in New England, the amateurs, they will fight anybody. They don't care about the record. They don't care if they wrestled. Um, we will fight anyone. I feel like over here they kind of pick and choose. You know what I'm saying? And I always knew that Rhode Island had love for me because that's why I packed the seats, right? Like if I didn't have love back at home, then I wouldn't sell 1,000+ tickets. You know what I'm saying? 2,000 tickets every fight, every time I go out there and fight. But it's just cool to know that people are Dave and Buster's going crazy, like because I was on the screen. Like I don't really think of that because I'm not there. I'm on the TV.
Yeah.
I can see it when I go home and fight, but like I appreciate you telling me that. It's really cool. Sometimes people show me videos of at the bar going crazy when I do win a fight, and it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And as for Florida, I feel like the only family I really had was my family and my training partners. But as far as the love in Florida, it wasn't as much as Rhode Island. And now that I'm in Cali, I feel a lot more love in Cali. You know why? Because I think that because I established a little community here.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I have children, I made friends with other parents, and I have my own gym now. So I feel like I have a lot of love out here in California. I feel like a lot of my members here, they're really good friends and they're very supportive. Place wouldn't be running strong without them. So I definitely feel the same love out here in California with my little gym that I do in Rhode Island.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So now you retired recently. How did you know that it was time to call it a career? And how did you really think about it at all? Like how long did you think about it if you did at all?
I think I lost 2 fights in a row, and I just wasn't myself, and I felt like I was getting older. I felt like I had a great camp. I never got beat up. You know what I'm saying? Like that. In my 25 pro fights. But man, I just the passion and the drive wasn't there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
After the fight, so I just decided to retire, and my body was hurt. My back was hurt. I got in a car accident a couple months before my last fight, and those injuries they followed me throughout training camp. Still till today sometimes, and it's like I have lower back pain sometimes that trickles through down to my legs, and I can't do a lot of things now because of fighting. Like I broke my wrists and my hands more than 10 times. I can't even play a basketball game. I can't play a full basketball game. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And my wrist starts hurting. Sometimes like it's hard to run because my knees are all beat up.
Hmm.
But I feel like giving my body a break now, and now I'm starting to train a little bit more again. I feel like I needed a break. My body just needed a break at that time. I was just too worn out, and my drive wasn't there. At that time, I was acting, so I was just like, hey, I can't be doing both. Let me just go and try and act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just my passion and drive and my 100% focus wasn't in fighting. So that's why I retired.
Okay. So you're now in California. You started your own gym in July called Sensation MMA. Was that
Yep.
always the goal for you? How'd you come about that? Can you kind of like take us through that process?
I always wanted my own gym, but I just didn't know it was gonna happen like this. To be honest, I wasn't planning on opening a gym, but you know, I ended up opening one because I got fired from my old gym. I was working at an MMA gym. That's right across the street, by the way. I was working at MMA gym there, and I got fired for no reason. Basically, the jiu-jitsu coach was really petty about me. He was jealous. He felt threatened by me. So he told the owner that, he needed to fire me or else he would press charges against the owner. And I did nothing. I just did my job, and he saw that my classes were growing and bigger than his. And I don't know what he felt threatened about. Obviously, I could whoop his ass, but I never put my hands on him. You know what I mean? I just told him one day, like, yo, I had enough of your shit. Leave me alone. And then after that, he kind of did some shady stuff. He put cameras in my room, and then like I would go and tell the owner, and then he went and told the owner like, hey, this guy doesn't stop. This guy doesn't stop working here, and I'm gonna press charges against you because I feel threatened by this guy. So I'm like, oh, all right. So I was basically told I couldn't step foot back into that gym, and my kids couldn't go back there. My kids trained there, by the way. That's where all
Hmm.
their friends were. New in California, no friends. That was the only people we kind of knew, the people from the gym, and I couldn't go back there. So, you know, uh, 3 weeks passed, and then I'm getting numerous phone calls, and they're calling me. They're calling my wife. Hey, where did Andre go? Where does Andre work now? Where does he teach? It's not the same without him. We want to follow him wherever he's teaching. Please let us know. So then I started teaching him in the park, just so that my kids can play with their friends.
Yeah.
And I miss the kids too because I train a lot with the kids. And my wife was like, "Hey, why don't you let's just start our own thing? I think it's time." And I was really nervous. And I actually was I actually just finished. I just graduated. Like I passed the test to be a police officer.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I was waiting for the phone call for that. And they were paying really good money, and I was focused on that. And I was just like, I don't know if we should open up our gym because I'm close to being, you know, a police officer. I was about to go to the academy, but we just followed our heart, and we ended up finding a space and bigger than we planned. But we were like, you know what, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go big, and we got a spot right downtown Redwood City, right across the street from the old gym I used to work at. And I didn't call one person. I didn't tell one person what I was doing until I started blasting on Instagram and kind of telling people at the park like, yeah, I am gonna open up my own gym, but and everybody just followed me. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I opened up my own gym, because it took triumph, took a challenge, and then I turned it into triumph.
Yeah. Did you always coach?
I did coach a lot. I always coached. That was always my side job.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I helped coach when I was in Rhode Island. I coached at Team United with Tom Evans. Me and my dad coached there.
Yeah. Right down
I
the
I
street.
Yeah, yeah, and I coached a lot in Florida.
Hmm.
You know, it was always a good side job for me. But now that I coached in West Palm Beach, Florida for ATT. So now that I have my own gym and I can do things my way and I'm not working, especially here, I'm not working for somebody that's way underqualified than me. If you look at my resume, it's like, damn, why don't I just open up my own gym? So I did.
Okay, so now did you hire or are you looking into hiring any other coaches for like maybe like jiu-jitsu coaches or wrestling coaches, or are you the complete and only coach?
Right now, I have a couple of assistant coaches,
Okay.
but I am the only coach right now. I mean, I've been doing this shit for like 18 years, almost 20
Yeah.
years, training with the best guys. So like, I have a lot to offer. But eventually, yes, I that is my plans. But the first year, I got to do everything myself. What I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to breed. I'm trying to breed my members, my students to know my system. So maybe one day, one of my members can run the kids class. When somebody that's been training with me for a year or 2 years, maybe they can run the kids class, and maybe they can start a morning class of their own or something like that. And as for jujitsu, I'm teaching the jujitsu for now, but in the future, never know. Maybe I might start a gi program. Maybe I'll bring somebody in, or maybe I'll do it myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm a high level purple belt, but I'm sure if you talk to a lot of people, they could say that I'm at that brown belt level, even close to black. So I just didn't spend a lot of time in the gi because I was always doing no gi. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but we'll see, man. Like people can be like, "Oh, how can you teach gi? You're not a black belt yet." Okay, then why are you teaching no gi? Because you don't know how to fight. You've never had a fight in your life. You only did grappling matches. You know what I'm saying? So I can come back at that. Like I fought in the UFC. What did you do? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
I
And
I
I'm an American. And
I
I'm an American top team affiliate too. You know what I mean? So I got
yeah.
that name behind me. I've trained with the best guys in the world. You see my coach, my professor, on TV in the UFC corner almost every weekend. So, you know, I'm not afraid to clap back at those who want to say that to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I train gi jitsu, and I know for a fact that they're two different sports. Like no gi and
Exactly.
gi, it's just completely different sports. No gi is very similar to wrestling, but there's still a lot of aspects that like you can't bring from wrestling, or you just be giving your back up all day. But
Exactly.
but I train mostly in the gi. However, it's cold as fuck in New England, so most of our schools are gi schools. But then as
Yeah.
you get more over to the West Coast, it's all no-gi over there because the hot as balls. So like, but there's a lot of
Listen, I love
differences.
training. I love training in the gi, and I still practice in the gi, but twice a week with my friends here. They're all black belts, so maybe one day I'll earn mine, and I'll
Oh,
be able
you'll
to
get
run my
there.
own gi program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You'll get there for sure. So now last question, any hobbies outside of MMA beside when you're not fighting, when you're not coaching at the gym, what are you doing?
To be honest, man, my life has just been the gym since I opened it, and I'm loving every single moment of it. I'm just trying to make it better in every way I can. And if I'm not doing that stuff, then I'm always with my kids, man. We're doing something at the park. My son, my oldest son, he likes basketball, so I try to play some basketball with him. And my younger son, he likes baseball. So, I try to play baseball with him too. They like WWE. Sometimes we'll just come here. Like last Sunday, we came here when it was closed, but it was just us three, and we were doing WWE on the mats. You know what I'm saying? We had like a whole Royal Rumble street fight using all the equipment here on the mats, just us three. So we, I hang out with my boys, my two sons. I'm trying to trying to be involved in their life too. Even though I am with them every day and they're in class every day, I think it's important that like we do other things rather than just like train together. So
Absolutely.
I try to do things with them.
Yeah, you sound like a great dad.
Thank you,
So
brother.
absolutely anytime. So So now, do you want to, this is the perfect time to shout out your gym, shout out where to find you out on social media, any content you're doing.
Yes, absolutely. If you guys want to follow my gym and follow me, I'm Andre Souk MMA on Instagram and Sensation Mixed Martial Arts. Look out for us. We're an American Top Team affiliate, and we are the MMA gym in the peninsula, in the Bay Area. Um, so if you guys want to learn mixed martial arts, we got striking, we got jiu-jitsu, we got wrestling. You guys come on. Look out for our team, man, because I tell you what, I got some wrestlers in here. I got some kids that are just coming in fresh out of high school, but they got heart. And I'm trying to take over and get to the next level, get them to the next level. That's always been a dream of mine. I love fighting. I love going to fight week, and this will be my way to kind of stay in the game. If I can breed some fighters and bring them to that next level. So definitely a goal of mine. So look out for some fighters coming out of Sensation Mixed Martial Arts, Redwood City.
Absolutely. We'll be on the lookout. Thank you so much for watching every single week. Thank you so much for Andre coming through. I really appreciate you coming on. You're a Rhode Island legend, and this was a great moment talking to you. It's been an amazing conversation. It's been a fire episode. Catch us every single Wednesday wherever you get your podcast. Catch me on Twitch every single day. I love y'all. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.